Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are going to be talking about, well, the downsides of physical media. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because after the HBO Max purge, a lot of people have been decrying that physical media is the future. It's gonna save us forever. Blah 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 blah. When in reality, physical media might not be the great savior that all of these YouTube channels are making it out to be. And again, and I'm not making this to start any unnecessary drama, but I feel that it's important to focus on the downsides of having all of this physical media just stored around in your house. And I have 5 talking points that I want to go over. So let's start with the first talking point. The first downside of it is really the space to store it. And I already covered this topic on my importance of curating physical media collection video, so I'm not going to dwell too much on this. But basically, the point I made in that video was, it doesn't matter if you have a 300 square foot studio apartment or a 300,000 square foot mega mansion. It's not a matter of if you run out of room, it's all a matter of when. I mean, sure, you can have a library of 20,000 DVDs, 15,000 Blu-rays, 10,000 vinyl records, but if you don't have the space to store it, I really hate to break it to you, you're gonna have to let some of it go. And so if you're gonna be using the argument of, well, I'm gonna save all of my physical media from companies that want to delete stuff for a tax write-off, or people that want to censor it, which again is all well and good reason to preserve some of this media, but still, you will simply run out of space at some point if you just keep acquiring and acquiring and acquiring and acquiring. And quite frankly, none of us have an infinite amount of room. In fact, we would all have to probably get storage units to store off our excess. In fact, a friend of the channel, Crazy Joe now Crazy Joe Adventures, formerly known as the Mega Podtastic YouTube channel, has been very open about that regard of how, he's gotten rid of his storage unit, and has actually been selling a lot of that stuff off, and a lot of that was his physical media collection. He's been honest about, just paring it down to the essentials and just getting rid of the rest. So again, in short, and I know I dwelled on this a little longer than I probably wanted to, but in short, you're simply going to run out of room to store all of this physical media that you're wanting to preserve. And the second downside of physical media is simply it will degrade over time. A lot of people are praising vinyl, and it's like, oh, vinyl records sound better than CDs or MP3 files because it's all in the wax or whatever they use. Okay, but here's the thing with vinyl that vinyl collectors are not being honest about. If you do not store your vinyl properly, the vinyl will bend. It will warp. So quite frankly, now you get this weird muffle of, you get part of a song mixed with another part of a song. I mean, hell, if it's warped bad enough, it's not gonna fit onto your record player. If it bends and warps to a point, it's not even gonna really work on your record player. So was having the vinyl really worth it? But it's but all the pops and the hisses, and I get it if you're really into that, but again, you need to also be honest about the fact that if you're not going to properly store vinyl, then basically, like I said, it's going to bend, it's going to warp, and now it's not only going to be virtually worthless, it's going to be virtually unplayable. And before I recorded this video, I actually remembered this article from 2014. I'm not going to read it word for word. And that was Library of Congress racing to preserve vast CD collection. And this was published back on August 28th, 2014. But there's a line in this article I am going to read to you that I am going to read word for word. It's only a couple sentences, but here it is. How long a CD will last is not as simple as its age. Different manufacturers use different methods with vastly different results when it comes to durability. So again, if you're thinking, well, I'm gonna preserve my vast CD collection, same principle applies. Now, granted, with vinyl there were standards, but like they're bringing up with CDs, different manufacturers use different methods with vastly different results when it comes to durability. So that Chumbawamba CD that you bought back in 1998 probably is not going to last until 2030, depending on how that CD was manufactured. Another thing that you have to consider when you're talking about disc-based media, whether it be CD, DVD, Blu-ray, even 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, is a little phenomena called disc rot. I have lost so many DVDs, Blu-rays, and video games to this phenomena where it, through absolutely no fault of your own, you could take care of your physical media collection, keep all the discs in the cases, put them in like dedicated CD, DVD books, doesn't really matter. What's going to happen over time is that the disc will start to degrade from within. Now some disc rot is not as damaging, but a lot of disc rot actually is. And once the disc rot spreads to where the critical information is being stored on the disc, that disc is basically no better than a coaster at that point. So again, you have to acknowledge, all you physical media collectors out there, and I know I have a vast collection of physical media myself, you have to come to the realization that your DVDs, Blu-rays, 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays, even video games, they will degrade over time in one way or another. Whether they bend and warp with regards to vinyl, DVDs, Blu-rays, and 4Ks can also bend and warp if you keep them under a hot light for long enough. Disc rot is very much a thing. VHS tapes, what is it? I think the magnetic tape. That magnetic tape was not designed to last forever. And in fact, a lot of VHS tapes, the reason why a lot of them won't play is because they actually grow mold inside of them. Like, go to a thrift store that still sells VHS tapes. There's still quite a few. And the one thing that you have to check for is there any mold that is actually grown on the tape? But it's not just mold that you have to worry about with VHS tapes. It's also that the tape is going to degrade over time. And anyway, I know I'm rambling for too long, so let's go to my third point on the downsides of physical media is that in going back to VHS, DVD, Blu-ray will degrade over time. You also have the phenomena of no machine lasts forever. You can have 10,000 Blu-rays, 20,000 DVDs, 50,000 VHS tapes, but here's the thing. If let's say your VHS player just goes kaput, it just goes out. No machine is built to last forever. Well, unfortunately, this article from PC World in 2016, RIP VHS players, the last VCRs ever will be made this month. And this article came out in July of 2016. Soon you'll no longer be able to buy a brand new VHS player. A company in Japan only recently realized it was time to stop making video home system machines, commonly known as VHS. Japan-based Funai announced earlier in July of 2016, that it would cease production of its VHS player, which was sold under various brands worldwide. The company decided to cease production due to difficulties in acquiring components, according to Japanese language Nikkei, and I'm going to butcher that name, Nikkei. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Oh, excuse me, that's something coming in my throat. The near non-existent market for the ancient home entertainment technology was also a factor. So guess what? You can have all of these VHS tapes around, and some of them are actually quite rare to come by, because sometimes there are scenes in movies that are on the VHS tape that never made it to the DVD or the Blu-ray. But guess what? If your VHS machine goes kaput, well, you can't exactly buy a brand new VHS player, so your only option is going to be to go to thrift stores. But again, that also has a short shelf life because you're also buying used VHS players. And like this article, and like they brought up, one of the reasons the company said decided to cease production due to difficulties in acquiring components. If the only company in the world that was still producing VHS machines could not acquire the components, what makes you think that your local mom and pop repair shop could acquire the components to fix your VHS player? DVD players go through the same thing. You know, the laser in the DVD player will eventually burn out. Same with the Blu-ray player. Same with your 4K Ultra HD player. So if you think that that having all of this physical media is going to, is going to help and save you, well, if the machine that is required to play them, goes out and no one is manufacturing said machines anymore, you basically just bought a lot of coasters, paperweights, and frisbees. Is really what you bought. The fourth point I want to bring up is out-of-print titles. And this is a phenomena that has been going on for some time. But, movies and TV shows, they go out of print all the time. And if you think that it's only the obscure stuff that goes out of print, no. It's even the popular movies also go out of print. And the one movie I can think of that went out of print was Mean Girls on Blu-ray. I almost said DVD, but no, it was on Blu-ray. But yeah, Mean Girls, a relatively popular movie, one of the Mean Girls. I'm assuming some of you watching this are around my age, like your mid-20s. Mean Girls was our Breakfast Club. So it went out of print on Blu-ray like back in the early 2010s, and there was a time when if you had Mean Girls on Blu-ray, that was like a $95 to $100 Blu-ray. Now they've put it back in print, but still, that movie went out of print for several years. Same with Titanic on DVD, believe it or not. There's a YouTube channel I follow, called Cinema Sickness, and he always does the gag of like finding Titanic on VHS everywhere he goes, and like how incredibly rare it is when it actually isn't, because you'll come across like 10 copies of it. But there was a time when if you wanted Titanic on DVD, good fucking luck finding it. I believe it got re-released on Blu-ray in 2012, and everybody complained about the changes to it. So still, if you're gonna rely on physical media to always be there for, in case of these, content purges on all of these streaming services, well, stuff goes out of print all the time. So, it's the same phenomena in physical media as it is on these streaming services. And the fifth and final point I want to bring up is basically the price gouging that tends to go on in physical media, and more specifically with boutique labels, right? If you go and buy a Blu-ray from like Scream Factory, they will charge you like $40 for a copy of The Burbs or Day of the Dead, or what's another one they've released? Think like stuff like Critters, stuff that's like really obscure. And what they're using is that, well, there's not enough demand for this for a wide release of this movie, but it's like if you don't support it, then movies like Critters and The Burbs and Day of the Dead are not going to get official releases anymore. So you better pay that $40 for that Blu-ray. Hell, some Criterion releases go for like $100. I think that was Seventh Samurai on Blu-ray also goes for $100. And an example that I brought up in my Piracy Always Needs to Be an Option video is a movie called The Great Silence. If you're a fan of spaghetti westerns, you know what The Great Silence is, but if you're not a fan of spaghetti westerns, you don't know what it is. So again, you have to know that this movie exists. If you want to buy that movie on Blu-ray, for example, it's gonna cost you anywhere between $35 and $40, and the DVD ain't much cheaper. It goes for about $26 to $30. Again, for a movie that you have to know exists, it's not like it's, you know, A Fistful of Dollars or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know, we're talking about these obscure movies, but again, be prepared to pay these prices, to pay these, you know, to pay these exorbitant prices if you want to watch these obscure movies. So again, the point that I'm making here is that physical media itself is not going to be this grand savior that everybody wants it to be. And look, there are downsides to digital media too, and that's why I'm working on a follow-up right now, and I will be talking about the downsides of digital media. That video should be coming out within the next few days or next week at the extreme latest, because it isn't fair to just criticize one side of the debate without criticizing the other. But still, I'm gonna end the video with this. If you think that your physical media collection is gonna save you from these content purges, or you know, from these content purges, whether they be, you know, company tax write-downs or whether it be censorship boards, just understand that there are a lot of downsides, and I know that there's a hell of a lot more downsides to it than just the 5 points I brought up in this video. But for the sake of time, because I know we've been going for over 16 minutes now, but for the sake of time, I just wanted to distill it down to 5 main points. And guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end it right. I'm gonna go ahead and end it right here before I drag out any longer than it needs to be. Actually, let me know down in the comments if you can think of any more downsides to physical media. Like I said, I just wanted to keep it to 5 points just for the sake of time and brevity. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead. Let's end the video right here. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos. So I will just see you guys next time.